All right, let's dive into the world of Wuchang Fallen Feathers. We're talking about the late Ming Dynasty, a land called Shu that's being absolutely torn apart by this bizarre plague. People are turning into monsters. It's intense. Today, we're going to follow the journey of our main warrior, Wuchang, not just through the game's story, but through how the game itself has grown and changed, from squashing nasty bugs to dropping some seriously cool new content. So, let's get started.
This game has been on a real journey of constant improvement, and it's all kind of led up to the latest update, which is patch 1.7. So that brings up the big question, right? What exactly did we get in this new patch? What new treasures are we talking about?
So, first up in version 1.7, the latest treasures. This patch really kicked off with the second wave of content for the Deluxe Edition. This was all about giving players some awesome new ways to customize their look. Let's go ahead and unpack what was inside.
Man, if you have the Deluxe Edition, this patch was like Christmas morning. It dropped 3 amazing new costumes: the Duskhaze Bamboo, the Draconic Dusk Dance, and the Draconic Dawn Dance. And it wasn't just about looking good, we got 2 new weapons in the mix: the super sleek Swan Blade and the absolutely brutal Red Coil War Axe. So yeah, new ways to define your whole combat style.
But here's the thing, and this is a really cool move by the developers. They didn't just focus on the people who paid extra. This patch wasn't just for Deluxe owners. They made sure there was something new for every single player who logged in.
And you can see the breakdown right here. On the left, you've got all that exclusive Deluxe stuff we just talked about. But look at the right side. This is what everyone got, completely free. 4 new pieces of headgear. We're talking the Jadeborn Grace, a cool wide-brimmed hat, a traditional black hat, and a black mesh scarf. It's a really nice touch that shows they're thinking about the whole community.
Look, getting shiny new gear is awesome, but it doesn't mean a whole lot if the game itself is a buggy, laggy mess, right? So this latest content drop is really just the cherry on top of a solid foundation that the developers have been building, patch by patch.
And this timeline shows you exactly what I'm talking about. It really puts the whole journey into perspective. You can see it started with those foundational optimizations in 1.3, then they tuned the performance in 1.4, then a huge focus on gameplay and bugs in 1.5, and all of that work is what made the new content in 1.7 possible. So let's actually rewind a bit and look at all that crucial early work.
All right, this is where the devs really got their hands dirty. Before you can add cool new swords and outfits, you have to forge a stable blade, So let's look at the absolutely essential performance boosts and bug fixes from patches 1.3 all the way through 1.5.1.
Okay, so let's talk about this number, 8 gigabytes. Now this might sound super technical, but trust me, this was a huge deal. One of the first things they did was dive deep into VRAM optimization, and they specifically targeted graphics cards with 8 gigs of memory or less. Why does that matter so much? Because that's one of the most common PC setups out there. This one single fix meant the game would run way smoother for a massive chunk of the player base. That's a huge win.
And it didn't stop with VRAM. The team really honed in on making the game feel responsive. They added a manual low latency mode and then even better, official NVIDIA reflex support. For you, the player, that just means your swing, your dodge, it happens the instant you press the button. No more input lag. They also tweaked super sampling for better frame rates, and, thankfully, they squashed that really annoying stutter that would happen during finisher animations. It was all about making combat feel sharp.
Of course, a smooth-running game that crashes all the time isn't much fun, is it? So performance was only half the battle. The developers also had to go to war with some pretty serious bugs.
Okay, so get this. There is this one bug, the Infinite Essence bug, and it was a real game breaker. Players found out that this item, Red Mercury Essence, could just be refined over and over and over again. It basically gave you infinite resources, which totally wrecked the game's balance. The devs found the problem in the Impetus repository system, and they shut it down for good in patch 1.5.1, bringing balance back to the world.
And that was just one of the big ones. They were on a bug-squashing rampage. They fixed major crashes that were happening right when you tried to start the game. They sorted out that frustrating issue where Deluxe Edition rewards just weren't showing up. They even fixed a nasty bug that made PS5 controllers just stop working. And, maybe most importantly, they unblocked missions that were stopping people from getting their hard-earned achievements. Each one of these was a huge quality-of-life win.
So the game runs smoother, it's way more stable. Now we can talk about the third piece of the puzzle, the gameplay itself. These are the little tweaks and changes that really affect how the game feels to play moment to moment.
This is probably the best example of the developers actually listening to player feedback. So early on, there was this minefield section in Chapter 2,
And it was a nightmare, just way too many landmines, and they did a ton of damage. It just wasn't fun. So in patch 1.3, they went back and totally retuned it. Fewer mines, less damage. It was still a challenge, but it felt fair.
Then you've got all these other little changes that honestly make a huge difference. Like now you can cancel a healing animation with a dodge. That's a literal lifesaver in a tough fight. They also tweaked invincibility frames when you get up so you don't get hit by cheap shots. And it wasn't just combat. They fixed annoying spots in the terrain where you could get stuck, and even patched a specific elevator in Chapter 5 that was trapping players. These are the fixes that just remove all that unnecessary frustration.
So when you step back and you look at the whole picture, you see a really clear strategy, right? The developers started with the absolute essentials, the technical polish, fixing crashes, making it run better. Then they moved on to balancing the gameplay itself. And it was only after they built that strong, stable foundation that they started adding all the new treasures and cool cosmetics.
And that brings us to what's next. We've seen the game grow from being a little rougher on the edges to a really polished experience that's still expanding. So after seeing this whole journey, I gotta ask you, what's the one thing you want them to tackle next? What change, big or small, do you want to see come to the land of Shu? Definitely something to think about.